I guess just a brief intro to the course. It's been running now since 2018, and we've had about 3 groups of graduates through the course. And it's 18-month program, 3 semesters. And really the focus of the course is an outcome at the end of the course, and that might be a book, it might be an exhibition, it might be a book and exhibition, it might be a multimedia piece, an exhibition, it might be an online piece of work, it could be, there's a number of different outcomes that are possible in the course. And alongside that, the students at the end produce an exegesis, which is a larger piece of writing that kind of tracks their journey through the course, but also situates the work that they've produced. So that being said, it is a coursework master's, but it does have lots of elements of a research master's as well, in terms of there's a significant amount of individual kind of personally led research that's supported, and also there's an essay kind of element to it as well. I'll talk a bit more about the structure of the course later on, but the way that we get to that essay and that final piece of work is a little bit different to other master's programs. And we certainly have space and options within the course for people to explore different types of writing, not just academic writing, and to produce different outcomes as well in that writing and also in their practice.
I guess my experience at PSC was really positive because it ticked those boxes that I was looking for, like small class sizes and familiarity with the teachers. Like I was really looking for an institution where if I was like late on something or someone hadn't heard from me, they would just text me and tell me. And that was like what I felt like I really got at PSC, was like really personable teachers who knew what I was talking about when I was talking about other artists in Australia, whether they're emerging or not. And I really found that to be like, to feel like that the teachers, I don't know, I guess were really grounded in the arts community in a real way. And also just I felt like there was a lot of freedom and trust in and open-mindedness towards what photography can be, that I felt allowed me to explore in my project sort of themes, but also techniques that I feel kind of suspicious that if I stayed in the institution I was in before, or if I perhaps studied somewhere else, I wouldn't have so much support to kind of just let the project take me where it took me, because I had never worked with video before, and ended up like my final work is a 30-minute video piece.
I guess that touches on a bit of a couple of things I wanted to raise. Was that one of the features of the course is that as a master's student, you also can tap into all of the bachelor subjects in the bachelor program. So the master's and the bachelor timetables are worked in such a way that they never overlap. So the master students can tap into, and I think you tapped into some of the video editing classes, Emmaline, and also the kind of alternative kind of media stuff that Bree was doing as well with different things. So
and I actually did a couple of like Photoshop stuff as well. What's the lecturer? Was it Nick maybe?
Yeah, I think Nick as well. That's right.
Yeah, and I found those to be really interesting. Like that was great. I really liked doing those subjects.
A worthwhile feature to raise is that we understand that the people who are undertaking the masters might not have skills in all of the different areas of photography that exist, and so with a bachelor program that does kind of touch on lots of different areas of photography and video and bookmaking and studio lighting and multimedia, all those things, that is kind of accessible to the students throughout the course. So there's 3 semesters, and in each semester, at the start of the semester, we kind of have a discussion with each student about the direction they want to go in that semester, and we obviously workshop that a bit with a number of the staff, and then we come up with a short list of who you might be mentored by. So as well as the staff at the college, and the people that are teaching on the masters, but also the wider kind of community of the college that you can access the other staff. The students in the masters also have a individual mentor as well, and that's someone from the wider community of photography, either in Australia or overseas.
As having like never had a mentor before, I don't know, like if you've never had one before, it's definitely like it's a strange new experience as opposed to just connecting with someone as a teacher. So I think it kind of took me a little while to get into it, and it definitely made a better connection with Claire Strand. Was certainly quite starstruck, but it worked out quite well, and she was really supportive. And I think that was there was this big list of people that you can connect with, but I found that she was really great for me to connect with, because she also, there's like a small portion of her work that's actually making photography, and so much of it is coming up with really interesting abstract methodologies and sort of systems and ways to look at photography without even using it at all. And that worked really well for me.
I felt was that doing the masters in Australia, you do feel a bit disconnected from what's going on in other places, and I think particularly actually in the last year it's been different. But that idea of being able to reach out to people in different countries and actually have your work kind of critiqued and get that feedback is something that I think in Australian kind of academic institutions haven't really addressed very well, And I think that was something that I really wanted to, from the start, really wanted to have. And we had an international kind of group of people that advised us on the masters. And I think that was something that I really felt would be useful. And I think it has been really useful for the students, is that not only do people do a master's to kind of push their practice and to, to develop their practice and to get their work out there, but also, it's about building kind of networks, and who knows what comes out of those things, in terms of having a mentor that's, in Europe, as Emmeline's was, or for Tom, I think Tom had Ian Tay, who's based in Malaysia, and other people as well. But
yeah, I just want to say one thing on that. I felt like that was really, really important and useful to me, was having Dan, your experience with the Asia Pacific Photo Book Archive, and sort of quite interested in photography from the Asia Pacific region, which is something that I never received in my undergrad, and I feel like a lot of institutions don't really provide, is something that's not strictly Eurocentric. And that's, I felt like that sort of knowledge base of being able to reference off the bat, photographers who were, from Australia and the Asia Pacific, was something that was really I guess, critical, and was
that's our community, right? So yeah. And so what we did with this program to counteract that was that at the start of each semester, we actually have 3 days a week for the first month of each semester. And in that month, we really get, and the students can maybe kind of talk a bit about their experience of that, but in that first month, we really get into kind of analysing what the projects are for that semester and what the kind of position is, and doing research and doing reading around it, and really critiquing the kind of plans for that semester, and really having a look at all the different kind of elements of kind of theory and contextual studies and other practitioners that are working in that area, and really testing out what the proposal is for that semester in those kind of 3 day a week, kind of 4 week block. So it means that when those 4 weeks are over, the students are actually ready to go out and start shooting and making work. They've got a really clear plan of what they're going to be doing. Whereas in the programs that I kind of researched, it took them until kind of 6 months in to really get to that point, because they're only doing 1 day a week. It's very stop start. So we do go down to 1 day a week, but only after that intensive month of really kind of refining and working out what the plan is. And that, again, I don't know that you guys can sort of say something, but that, I think has been really important for me, I think, because it does also bring the group together in a really cohesive way as well, that you have this intensive kind of experience for the first 4 weeks. And of course, as you go through, it gets a little bit less intensive. Like the third semester, everyone's kind of off and running. So those first 4 weeks are still we do the 3 days, but it's much more about testing out what your outcomes are going to be by that point, if you like, or something,
I had not, going into the program, I'd never really been exposed to theory at all. So that's been a really huge part of my experience at PSC, and one of the things that I've walked away just really, really hungry to learn more and more about different theories. So I guess all the course supervisors have got such a varied interest as well, that I was exposed to lots and lots of different reading that I probably never would have come across I also was a PSC graduate back in 2005, so I knew the college. Prior to going into the MA program, I was doing lots of different things within photography. I was running a gallery for a while, working with artists, putting together exhibitions and things like that. So I guess I found I had reached a place where a lot of my energy was going into working with other artists, and my personal practice felt like it wasn't really developing. So going into the MA program is kind of like a selfish act in a way. I decided I'm going to use this program to really try to push my creative practice further. And yeah, I just used that opportunity to talk with as many people at the college as possible. I took full advantage of the mentorship program. I've pestered anybody who is willing to listen to me talk about my project, and I continue to do that. So it's, you know, it's like all things you get out of it, what you are willing to take. And yeah, so that was the mentality that I went into the course with. Trying to think what else. The reason I picked PSC, I really like the practitioners that are involved in the college. It's a really interesting mix of curators, people that are working in all parts of the photographic industry and beyond. And I like the idea of the smaller classes, and I also like the idea of, you know, I don't mind learning remotely, but I also did like that connection of sitting in a class and getting to know the other people in the course, which I think is, you know, a really lovely part of it, and seeing other people develop their projects while you're developing yours as well.
And in terms of your kind of practice and your outcomes, Tom, tell us a bit about, you know, what you did and how you did it and kind of how it came about, really.
Yeah, so I guess I used the course to make work the entire way through. So it's interesting hearing you talk about how you didn't want to be 6 months in and not taking a photo. I kind of had the opposite problem, which is I took photos all the time. And, you know, I used the course as a way to try to make sense of what I was trying to talk about. And, you know, that can be quite an overwhelming thing, but you have to kind of trust the process. And I think the lecturers really kind of instill that in you as well. I remember Christian saying that many times, that, you know, eventually the things that you're reading and what you're making will kind of align. And thankfully, I feel like that's where I've sort of landed with my practice. So another thing that the course really helped me do was, I guess, kind of define the genre of photography in which I'm kind of positioned, because I'd never really had to do that in the past. So because I'm using lots of different tools to kind of talk about this issue. I use, you know, the photography, I use the video. I'm working with a sound engineer at the moment to build soundscape. I've worked with a graphic artist as well who, you know, produced the cover art. So I'm using, I use written word as well. I worked with a poet who produced some text for the book. So it's this really kind of multi-pronged approach to storytelling.
Yeah, you're in the first semester, sorry, you're doing your practical class, and then you're also doing a theory class, which is really kind of establishing the framework for the research. And if you recall, you guys, you do a literature review and an essay plan, and you're doing a bibliography as well. So you're setting out the framework for where your kind of research and your practice will be situated. And then in the second semester, what we do is we actually do a experimental writing class, really, which is where you actually explore multitude of different types of writing. So it might not be academic writing at all. And I think Emmaline, for example, explored screenplays and different types of writing. I think, you know, other people explored poetry and creative writing, biography, fiction, multiple different types of writing. So we kind of move away from that kind of traditional academic type of writing and think about how image and text can really work together. And we, you know, Emmaline talked about photo books, and obviously that's a big area of interest for me. And there's a lot of photo books that are really fantastic in the way that they combine image and text together. So we kind of explore those areas. And then in the third semester, in the final semester, then the students bring that together, really. And, you know, Tom, for example, has commissioned a writer to write, you know, a poem alongside the work. And so some students then, you know, you do the exegesis, and some of that actually can be part of the creative writing. So we've had students in the past that have submitted a book of poetry alongside their exegesis as well as their photographs that combine their kind of creative writing as well. You got the text there to show.
This is a little, it's like a little additional sort of concertina fold out that goes with the book.
Right.
Yeah, and that was amazing. You know, having this poet Judith get on board with the project as well. So yeah, all the different collaborations is something that I really do enjoy. Yeah, the exegesis as well was something that terrified me going into the course, because I just felt like I was very ill-equipped for anything academic, but I ended up loving it. And even when it's finished, I'm a bit sad, to be honest. I could have kept going. And I didn't find it a chore. Like, once you get in the rhythm of it, I found that I had this really nice balance of, you know, just writing about other artists, analysing different artwork. And so it was just a part of the course which I didn't expect to really enjoy so much, but I actually really loved that side of it as much as I have enjoyed making the work at the end of the day.
And it's kind of ticking along. I don't know if you remember, but it kind of ticks along in the background as you're making your work too. It's not something you just get to at the end. Again, with most master's courses, that's certainly what happened with me. Is I was doing the master's, and then the last 3 months I had to write this thing. You know, the way that we kind of structure is that you do have an essay plan and a literature review kind of done in the first semester. And of course it changes, but it's something that kind of ticks along throughout the masters that doesn't then become this massive chore at the end, like you said, Tom, I think, which is kind of important, I think, because people do, you know, I think you particularly, Tom, were one at the start were like, well, I can't write. I mean, that's going to be really hard, you know? And I think at the moment you're thinking about doing a PhD now, right? And actually another feature of the course, which we haven't talked about, which is something that as far as I know, no one else does, and again came out of the research, is that when you get to the final semester, you can actually weight the practice and the theory according to your own desires.
I found the workload, but also the way that the workload was kind of self-managed to be really flexible. I didn't actually make any work for the MA in Victoria. I was kind of living in Victoria, but was moving between SA and Victoria because, like, I'm from Adelaide and get a lot of work here. And so I found that, like, you know, I sort of tuned into quite a few lectures, and then mentor sessions. Obviously, it was with overseas mentors, so they were quite flexible. And often like late nights or early mornings, but also just with supervisors, I found that I often sort of could have like Zoom meetings, or you know, I found that to be really flexible. And then yeah, I guess with work making, I felt like actually everyone in the course made work in completely different ways. We had Yask, who kind of traveled around the world essentially. I mean, obviously that's not very conducive to first-time dads, but in terms of like managing, each person managing their own workload, everyone of the students of the cohort that I was with actually made work in completely different ways on totally different schedules. And I like, when we would have like checkups, maybe every like month or so, there were sometimes where people were like, I haven't barely made any work. And then the next time they would have had like a period where they, you know, when Tom had he made a bunch of work in Queensland, he hadn't made work for a couple like weeks or a month before that, and then kind of had this huge deluge of images. And, you know, I think that everyone had really different ways of approaching their creative process and managing it.
Yeah. You know, that month at the start also, what that does is that it does allow you after that month to go off and do stuff. And so after that intensive month, you know, for example, Yask, he was in India for a few months, he was in the UK for a few months, like he was off at different places, but we were constantly catching up on those Fridays on a weekly basis. But because we'd had that month at the start of the semester to really set the project out and set the parameters, there was no issue with the progress slowing down, because it was very clear what was needed for that kind of semester. And I think maybe Tom as well. I mean, Tom, you know, Tom's got a lot of what's the eushemism?
Balls in the air.
Balls in the air, let's say.
Yeah.
As well as Emmaline, you know, being interstate. So I think, you know, maybe Tom could sort of cut on that one as well.
Yeah, I found it, you know, like there was times where I couldn't physically attend class, or something came up work-wise, which was just too good of an opportunity to, you know, to miss. And the college, you know, like Daniel was always very flexible with that. And, you know, I think that's the benefit of small classes, and also, like, you know, a new course, I think the effort's there to make sure that the students are getting what they're needing. And then, yeah, like the class time, I tried to get to it as much as possible, because it's just such it's such a nice thing being a little bit older and kind of allowing yourself to have that time where you can sort of sit there and really be present and not have to answer a phone. And it's like it's me time. Yeah, like I was trying to decide if I should wait or not, because circumstances never really perfect for these things. And I am very glad that I just went for it when I did. And I've found it the right balance of pressure, but also that, that freedom to do things in your own time.
Mm. And I think even, we have, Wendy was in your group, I think, wasn't she? And she was, obviously I think she was a high school photography teacher, but she was able to take a year off. But the final semester, when it all kind of comes to the end, she went back teaching a bit as well. So she was managing teaching and doing the masters. And we've got a current student in the middle semester, Rachel, who's also a high school teacher, and she's a photography high school teacher, and she's managing that as well. And really the aspiration for it is that, there aren't any other master's programs in the Asia Pacific region like this one. There are a couple, obviously, in Australia in terms of photography master's programs, but nothing really like this. So, through the networking, through the mentorships, through the staff that we have at PSC, we're really constantly trying to push people out there to get exhibitions, to get things happening, to connect them to people. That's why we have a host of people coming through the course and talking to the students. Because, like, for example, in the first 4 weeks in the second semester, the students will meet, the director of the CCP in Fitzroy, the curator at the Monash Gallery of Art, 2 publishers of photo books, and have a talk by the curator at the Art Gallery of New South Wales of photography, something like that, for example. So, that's invaluable just in terms of building those networks, because then we take you to the point where we can take you, and then the work and you take it from there, and then you start to build stuff and start to get outcomes and all those things. And then, of course, in terms of teaching, that obviously with the master's program, with the master's qualification, it's a nationally accredited qualification equivalent to all other master's programs. And so therefore you also are qualified to teach at universities as well. We do have students that come into the course that don't have a photography degree or don't even have an art degree, for example. So we've had people who've had a sociology degree, people who've had an English degree, but they've been working in photography, they've been doing photography, they've been exploring visual arts, maybe not even photography, but some area of visual art. And they're ready to take it to the next level. So having a degree in photography isn't a prerequisite to get into the course at all. So basically the way it works is that on the website, there's an application form. It's an online form. And what you put in there is basically a short bio, and then you put together a project kind of proposal. Now, the idea with that project proposal is that it's really giving us an idea of your knowledge about your own photography and your knowledge about photography more generally in terms of where you think your work sits. Everyone overthinks their project proposal way too much. And as Tom kind of said before, a lot of people think they're not ready and that they're going to be ready next year is always the thing I always hear. Oh, next year I'm going to be ready to do the masters. But I think one of the things that's important to state is that it is really worth just kind of doing it, writing down the proposal, because what happens is that in that first 4 weeks, we workshop those proposals to the point where we pull them apart and put them back together and really kind of refine them so that they're ready to go. So we're not expecting that you submit a project proposal that's ready to go, that's thoroughly researched, that's all kind of prepared and is at a master's level. It's more just giving us a sense of who are you as a photographer, what areas do you think you want to work in? What do you think the project might be that you're interested in kind of pushing? And then we start to kind of workshop that really,
Also wanted to just mention as well on the note of the project proposal, as Dan said, a lot of people are hesitant to put in their application before then, but Dan is always happy to, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but have a look over them, discuss them with you. We understand that what you submit at the time of making an application isn't the final thing. So it's better to just kind of get it in there and then we'll workshop it with you. as you go, rather than put off, you know, putting an application in just because you couldn't think of how to word your proposal perfectly.
And as Steph said, you know, I think pretty much every person who's applied for the Masters, I've met with them individually before they even put the proposal in and had a chat to them about it. And they've talked me through what they're thinking, and I kind of give them some guidance on that as well. And so then we also, so we ask for the bio, we ask for the project proposal, and then we also ask for the names of 2 referees as well. So we won't contact those referees until we get your permission, until we get to a certain stage, but we ask for the names of those referees as well. And I think that's pretty much it for the application in the first stage. And then really what will happen is then you'll get invited for an interview, you'll show some work, we'll discuss the project proposal, and then we'll go to the next stage of other information that we'll need as well.